Keshtal stood at the center of the memory hall, his long hands resting behind his back as he looked up at the tall crystal pillars. The building was silent, except for the soft hum of energy traveling through the walls. For most of his life, he had walked these halls as an archivist, learning from the memories of his people and adding new discoveries to the great collection. But today was different. Today he had come for the ritual of erasure. Erasure was considered an honor among his species. When an elder reached a certain stage of life, they gave up their memories so the next generation could carry on without the distractions of the past. The people believed that letting go of old memories prevented conflict. Everyone grew up hearing how the ritual kept their society peaceful and united, and yet, as Keshtal waited for the memory attendants to arrive, he felt a quiet unease moving through his chest. It was not fear of losing himself. He had prepared for that. It was something else. A feeling like a whisper telling him he had unfinished work, a mystery still unsolved. He had spent decades studying ancient ruins across their star system. Many of the sites had confusing signs of mass abandonment. Cities left behind, outposts shut down with no explanation. Every time he tried to connect the pieces, someone in authority would gently redirect him, telling him he was wasting time. "The past does not matter," they would say. "Only harmony matters." Still, Keshtal felt there was something missing in the stories he had been taught. Something important. He turned as the tall robed attendants entered the chamber. Their faces were calm and expressionless. They moved with slow, steady steps, like beings who already lived outside of time. "Keshtal," their leader said, bowing her head, "your day of erasure has come. You have served the archives well, and now your memories will return to the hall. They will guide the young ones after you." Keshtal bowed in return, but his thoughts were far from peaceful. The attendants led him to the central dais, a smooth circle of polished stone. Above it hovered a sphere of shimmering light. It pulsed gently, like a breathing creature. This was the memory core. It would pull out each memory, one by one, leaving Keshtal with a clear mind and a new beginning. "Please stand in the center," an attendant said. Keshtal stepped into the light. It felt warm against his skin. The hum of the core grew louder, deep enough for him to feel it in his bones. For a moment, he closed his eyes. He told himself this was the right path. His people had followed this tradition for thousands of years. Why should he be different? But the whisper of doubt returned. What if everything he suspected about the ancient ruins was true? What if the disappearances he found in old records were not natural? What if there was a reason he kept being discouraged from studying them? And why, he wondered, did the reports of others who had undergone erasure stop appearing after their ritual was complete? No letters, no messages, no research. They simply vanished from public life. The attendant raised her hand. "Begin the process." The core brightened. Keshtal felt the first tug, soft, almost gentle, like a memory trying to rise out of his mind. A childhood image shimmered at the edge of his thoughts. He felt it sliding away. Then the alarms erupted. A high, sharp sound cut through the hall. Lights flashed red. The memory core dimmed at once, as if startled. The attendants froze. "What is happening?" one of them demanded. The doors at the far end of the chamber burst open with a metallic blast. A figure stepped inside, armor dusty from travel, helmet under one arm, breathing hard. She was human. Keshtal's heart jolted. Humans were not common visitors to his world. Their species and his had only recently begun exchanging information. They were curious, bold, and unpredictable, but they respected other cultures deeply. So why would one interrupt a sacred ceremony? The woman raised her hands to show she carried no weapon. "Stop the ritual!" she shouted. "You have to stop! You can't erase his memories!" The attendants stared in stunned silence. Their leader stepped forward, her calm voice now cold. Human, this is a sacred process. Your presence here is unacceptable. Leave at once. I won't, the woman said firmly. Keshtal, we need to talk now. Keshtal felt confusion rise inside him. How did she know him? Why was she interfering? The lead attendant spread her arms. Erasure is voluntary. The human has no authority here. The woman shot back. Voluntary? Is that what you call it? Because according to the data I found, no one who undergoes erasure is ever seen again. Keshtal blinked. That is not true, he said softly. Yet even he heard the uncertainty in his own voice. The memory attendants looked at one another but said nothing. The human woman stepped closer. My name is Mara Hayes. I'm a lieutenant with the Terran Exploration Corps. I intercepted encrypted signals from your government. They were about you, Keshtal, about your research. Someone does not want you to continue it. Keshtal felt the ground beneath him shift. My research? It is only old ruins. No, Mara said. It's more than that. You found clues that point to a major event in your history, something your leaders want erased, and you were getting too close, so they decided erasure was the answer. The attendants erupted in protest. This is a lie. Human, you misinterpret our customs. You speak without knowledge. But Mara didn't back down. She looked directly at Keshtal. You felt it, didn't you? Something was wrong. That's why you never finished your final report. Because your instincts were screaming at you. Keshtal remembered the whisper in his mind. The unease. The missing pieces of the past that refused to fit. He swallowed. What do you expect me to do? He asked quietly. Come with me, Mara said. Let me show you what I found. Just look. Then you can choose your own path, not one forced on you. The attendants reacted instantly. Seize them! Energy restraints shot from the walls like glowing ropes. Mara dodged one, pulling Keshtal out of the Corps' circle. Another restraint whipped toward them. Mara grabbed Keshtal's arm and yanked him aside. The glowing rope struck the floor and burned a small crater. The human pointed toward the open door. Move! Keshtal hesitated only a second. Then he ran. Mara led him down the wide corridor, past tall windows that glowed with afternoon light. Behind them, the attendants shouted orders, calling for guards. Why are they reacting like this? Keshtal gasped. They have never treated anyone with violence. Because you weren't supposed to know the truth, Mara said. And now you do. They reached a balcony overlooking the city, a vast stretch of smooth buildings and floating walkways, glowing with soft blue light. A transport pod hovered nearby, humming quietly. Mara jumped in and motioned sharply. Get in! Keshtal climbed beside her. The pod's doors closed just as a group of memory hall guards charged onto the balcony. Go! Mara commanded. The pod shot forward, rising into the air with a burst of speed. As the memory hall shrank behind them, Keshtal pressed a hand against the window. His world, calm, orderly, and peaceful, suddenly felt like a place full of secrets. Mara glanced at him. I'm sorry I had to crash into your ceremony like that, but if I had arrived even 2 minutes later, you would have forgotten everything. All your research, all your discoveries, everything that makes you you. Keshtal stared at her. Why would a human risk this much for me? Because the truth matters, she said simply, and because you deserve a real choice. Keshtal turned his gaze to the horizon. The memory hall was still visible as a distant blue shape. The world he thought he understood had cracked open, revealing questions he had never been allowed to ask. And now, for the first time in his long life, he felt something stronger than fear or doubt. He felt the need to know the truth. The pod soared into the sky, toward the desert ruins where his unanswered research waited, toward answers that would change everything. The transport pod raced through the sky, cutting across the bright clouds like a silver arrow. Keshtal sat beside Mara Hayes, still breathing fast from the escape. His mind was overflowing with questions, some sharp like blades, some soft like smoke he could not grasp. He had never run from his own people before. He had never imagined it. His world was supposed to be one of trust, unity, and calm decisions. But now the memory hall guards were behind them, chasing with small patrol crafts that glowed blue in the distance. Mara tapped quickly on the pod's controls. A holographic map appeared in front of her. "We need to reach the old desert spaceport. That's where I hid my ship, and that's where your research data is stored." Keshtal frowned. "How do you have my research? It was in the archives." "That's the strange part," Mara said without looking up. "Most of it wasn't. I found deleted files inside hidden folders connected to your projects. Someone tried to wipe your discoveries, Keshtal. Not because they were unimportant, but because they were dangerous." Keshtal felt a cold weight settle inside him. The idea of anyone deleting data from the archives was almost unthinkable. The archives were sacred, pure. Nothing was ever removed. "Who?" he whispered. "Who would do such a thing?" Mara shook her head. "I don't know yet, but I plan to find out." The pod suddenly jolted. A warning alert appeared on the windshield. "Patrol craft approaching," Mara muttered. "Hold on!" Blue streaks of energy flew past the pod, burning holes in the clouds. The patrol ships were closing in, forming a tight triangle around them. Keshtal stared at the lights flashing on their control panels. "They are using immobilizer beams. They want to disable us." "Not today," Mara replied. With a sharp motion, she pulled the pod into a steep drop. Wind roared around them, and the pod trembled as it rushed down the sky. Keshtal grabbed the edge of the seat, but Mara stayed calm, her eyes sharp and focused. The patrol ships followed, weaving through the air with practiced precision. "They won't give up," Keshtal said, voice tight. "They don't have to," Mara answered. "We only need to reach the canyon." The canyon spread below them like a long, twisting scar across the desert. Deep, narrow, and maze-like, it was impossible for large crafts to fly inside. Mara guided the pod into the canyon just as the patrol's immobilizer beam fired again. The shot grazed the pod's tail, shaking it hard, but they made it inside. The canyon walls rose on both sides, tall and jagged. The pod skimmed close to the rock, just inches away. The patrol ships hovered above the canyon's rim, unable to follow. Keshtal let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "We escaped." "For now," Mara said. "But we need answers before they find us again." The canyon gradually widened, opening into a vast desert plain. In the distance stood the ancient spaceport. Broken towers leaning like tired giants, landing pads covered in sand, and rusted metal hanging from forgotten walkways. Keshtal felt something twist inside him, sadness mixed with curiosity. He had studied this place for years, but never imagined returning like this. The pod landed near a half-collapsed hangar. Mara stepped out first, scanning the area. The wind blew gently, carrying grains of golden sand across the ground. "No movement," she murmured. "Good." Keshtal stepped out slowly. The desert heat wrapped around him like a thick blanket. He looked up at the broken towers, thinking of the people who once worked here, the ships that once launched into the stars. "What did you discover here?" he asked. Mara didn't answer immediately. She walked toward the hangar and gestured for him to follow. Inside, under a layer of dust, sat her small exploration ship, sleek, angular, and clearly human in design. Mara opened the ramp and motioned him inside. The ship's interior was clean and bright, with glowing screens and humming circuits. She walked to the control desk and activated a display. A 3D map of his planet appeared, then slowly expanded outward into surrounding star systems. Keshtal stared. "This is not our map." "No," Mara said. It's what your ancient map looked like. He felt the shock like a wave crashing over him. His people always taught that they had been a small, peaceful civilization, exploring only their own system before deciding to focus inward. Yet the map showed travel routes stretching far into the galaxy. "This can't be real," Keshtal whispered. "It is." Mara zoomed in. "Your civilization once had dozens of outposts across different systems. This spaceport was part of that network. And then, suddenly, all records of these outposts were removed." Keshtal's hands trembled. He could hardly breathe. "Why would they hide this? Why erase an entire age of exploration?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out," Mara said. She tapped a second file. "Now look at this." A new hologram appeared. Lists of names, dates, and messages. Many were stamped with the same final note: "Erasure completed." Keshtal felt his heart drop. They were the names of scholars, researchers, historians, and explorers, one after another. All of them had asked questions about the ancient era. All of them had reached the same point in their research. And all of them had undergone erasure shortly after. "This is impossible," he said weakly. "Erasure is not punishment. It is a noble ceremony." Mara's eyes were gentle but firm. "Maybe it used to be. But somewhere along the line, someone repurposed it." Keshtal sank into a seat. The truth felt too heavy to hold. He thought about the gentle attendants in their calm robes. He thought about the leaders who always spoke of peace. He thought about the missing records, the abandoned outposts, the ruins he had studied. Had everything been a lie? Mara sat across from him. "Keshtal, I didn't come here to attack your culture. I respect your people. But I found something else too." She brought up another file. A video recording. Keshtal leaned closer. The video showed an old meeting room filled with his planet's officials, leaders from many generations ago. They were arguing in sharp voices. On the table was a report showing a conflict that had broken out between distant colonies, a conflict caused by different interpretations of history. One official slammed a hand onto the table. "As long as memories continue to divide us, there will be conflict. We must control the past if we want peace." Another official responded, "But we cannot erase history. That is dangerous." The first official replied coldly, "Then erase the people who remember it." The screen went black. Keshtal sat frozen. He felt like the ground beneath him was dissolving. His breath came slowly, unevenly. "So, erasure began with fear," he said at last, "not with honor." "Yes," Mara whispered. "Your society didn't want the pain of past mistakes. So the leaders removed the reminders. Over time, the ritual became tradition. People forgot its true origin." Keshtal closed his eyes. He suddenly saw his entire life from a new angle. Every gentle warning, every restricted archive, every suggestion to avoid studying the ancient ruins. It made sense now. Someone had been protecting a lie for generations. And Keshtal had almost lost his memories to that lie. Mara placed a hand on his arm. "You deserve to know the truth. Now you can choose for yourself. Stay and expose this, or come with me to finish your research safely." Before he could answer, the ship's proximity alarm beeped sharply. Mara checked the sensors. Her eyes narrowed. "They found us." Keshtal looked at the screen. Dozens of memory hall enforcers were heading toward the spaceport on foot and by air. They carried equipment he had never seen before. Strange tools humming with energy. "They're not here to talk," Mara said. "We need to move." Keshtal felt fear mixing with a new feeling, determination. He stood up. "No more running," he said quietly. "But we cannot fight. We must outsmart them." Mara raised an eyebrow. "You have a plan?" Keshtal looked toward the ruins outside. The ancient structures, the forgotten towers, the old defense consoles buried under dust. Yes, he said. I know this place better than anyone, and the past they tried to hide may protect us. Mara nodded, trusting him. Outside, the desert wind grew stronger. The truth was coming, and so were the enforcers. The desert wind swept across the ancient spaceport, carrying thin trails of sand across the broken floor. Keshtal stepped outside Mara's ship, his eyes scanning the ruins with a focus he had never felt before. He had studied this place for years, but now it felt alive, full of secrets waiting to be used. Mara followed him, keeping a careful eye on the sky. "Sensors show the enforcers are 5 minutes away," she said. "Whatever plan you have, it needs to happen fast." Keshtal nodded. "Come with me." They moved toward one of the collapsed towers. Half the structure had fallen long ago, leaving a skeleton of metal ribs reaching toward the sky. Keshtal approached a cracked panel near the base and brushed away the sand. Underneath was a small glowing symbol, ancient, smooth, and circular. Mara looked surprised. "This place still has power?" "Yes," Keshtal said. "Ancient builders powered the spaceport with deep core energy. It can remain active for thousands of cycles." He pressed his hand against the symbol. A faint vibration traveled through the ground. The metal panel slid open, revealing a narrow stairway leading underground. Mara raised her eyebrows. "Hidden doors? You never mentioned this in your research." "I found it only once," Keshtal said softly. "But I was told not to continue investigating. They said it was too dangerous. At the time, I believed them." "And now?" Mara asked. "Now I am tired of believing lies." They hurried down the stairs as the panel closed behind them. The underground chamber was lit by dim blue lights along the walls, flickering like old stars. Strange machines sat covered in dust, some half-broken, others still glowing faintly. Mara walked around slowly. "This looks like a control center." "It is," Keshtal said. "The ancient explorers used these machines to track their starships, guide landings, and defend the spaceport from threats." "Defend?" Mara repeated. "You mean weapons?" Keshtal shook his head. "Not weapons for war. Defensive drones meant to protect civilians and property. They never attacked unless ordered." Mara examined one of the consoles. "And you think they still work?" Keshtal stepped toward the largest console, a circular table with a hologram projector in the middle. He brushed away dust, revealing buttons shaped like small crystal panels. "I think they do," he said. "But even if they don't, we have another use for this place." Mara tilted her head. "What use?" "To reveal the truth," Keshtal said. "The spaceport systems are connected to an orbital broadcast array. If we can activate it, we can share the hidden files you found with the entire planet." Mara blinked. "Your whole world? Everyone at once?" "Yes," Keshtal said. "Once the truth is out, the leaders cannot hide behind tradition anymore." Mara let out a slow breath. "I like the idea. But we'll have to act before the enforcers reach us." Keshtal placed both hands on the console. He could feel a faint pulse beneath his palms, like the spaceport was still breathing. He pressed a sequence of symbols. The lights grew brighter. The hologram table hummed. A projection appeared above it, an ancient map of the galaxy, marked with routes his people had once traveled. Mara stepped closer, staring at the moving lines of light. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It is our forgotten past," Keshtal replied. "The story they tried to erase." Before they could continue, a deep metallic echo shook the chamber. Mara looked up sharply. "They're here." Keshtal ran to a small maintenance screen near the entrance. It showed blurry images of the surface. Dozens of enforcers were moving toward the tower, their energy tools glowing. "They are cutting through the structure," Keshtal said. "They will break inside soon." Mara stepped beside him. "Then let's activate those drones." Keshtal nodded. He returned to the main console and activated a secondary interface. A list of dormant systems appeared: landing guides, power regulators, atmosphere stabilizers, and near the bottom, defensive drones, status, dormant. He tapped the command panel. The console vibrated slightly, as if waking from a long sleep. The floor shook. Loose dust fell from the ceiling. Mara watched the hologram change as glowing icons appeared, small circles representing drone units scattered around the ruins. "They're waking up," she said with a smile. Keshtal felt hope rising in him. "Good. They will hold off the enforcers long enough for us to finish." But just as he opened the broadcast interface, alarms flashed across the screen. Mara frowned. "What's wrong?" "They are trying to override the drones from outside," Keshtal said. "They are using memory hall access codes. The drones think the enforcers are their rightful controllers." Mara's eyes hardened. "Can you lock the system?" "Not fully," Keshtal said. "But I can redirect the drone's priorities." He typed quickly, fingers flying across the panels. The console displayed a new command: Priority shift, protect spaceport archives, restrict all access. The drones responded instantly. Their icons turned bright green. Outside, loud metallic sounds erupted as the drones rose from hidden bays. They hovered above the ruins, glowing with ancient blue energy. The enforcers tried to approach, but the drones created a protective circle, pushing them back with harmless but strong energy pulses. Mara watched the screen. "You did it! They can't get inside!" Keshtal nodded. "But they will try another way soon. We must hurry." He opened the broadcast controls and inserted the data crystal Mara had brought. The files projected into the hologram: records of hidden history, erased explorers, and secret meetings of leaders who feared the past. Mara looked at him. "Ready?" Keshtal's voice was calm. "Yes." He pressed the broadcast command. A deep hum filled the chamber. The hologram expanded upward, forming a pillar of light that reached the ceiling. Far above, the ancient orbital array awoke, sending a beam of information through the sky and across the world. "It is done," Keshtal whispered. But the moment of victory was short. The console sparked sharply, and a warning appeared: external interference detected, broadcast under attack. Mara cursed under her breath. "They're trying to shut it down!" Keshtal's hands flew across the controls. "We need more power. The broadcast array is old. It cannot fight against modern interference for long." Mara scanned the room. "How do we boost it?" Keshtal pointed toward a large, cylindrical machine in the corner. "The core stabilizer. It can redirect power from the deep core system, but it must be activated manually." "I'll do it," Mara said, already running toward it. Keshtal watched as she opened the stabilizer's control panel. The machine hummed with a low, strong vibration. Mara pressed a series of buttons, then pulled a heavy lever. The stabilizer roared to life. Bright energy spread through the floor, back into the console, and up to the broadcast system. The warning vanished. "Broadcast stable," Keshtal said with relief. Mara flashed him a quick smile. "We're not done yet. Look." A new image appeared on the maintenance screen. The enforcers had pulled back from the drones, but now they brought larger equipment, heavy units that emitted strong pulses of energy. "They intend to disable the drones completely," Keshtal said. "Once they do, they will enter this building." Mara returned to his side. "How long until the broadcast finishes?" 2 more minutes, he said. "We'll hold them off," Mara said firmly. Keshtal looked at her with surprise. "You would fight for this? For my people?" "For the truth," she said simply. "For everyone who deserves to know." Outside, explosions shook the ruins as the drones fought to hold the line. Inside, the lights flickered as the broadcast reached its final stage. Suddenly, a loud crack shook the stairway above. Pieces of metal fell from the ceiling. Footsteps echoed down the stairs. "They are inside," Keshtal said. Mara grabbed a wrench from a nearby tool rack. "Stay behind me." Keshtal touched her arm. "No, I must finish this." He turned back to the console and began finalizing the broadcast code. Mara stood ready as shadows moved in the stairway. The chamber trembled. The broadcast signal reached its peak. Keshtal pressed the final command. A beam of light shot upward. The truth was out. Mara grabbed his hand. "Time to run!" They sprinted toward a secondary tunnel just as the enforcers burst into the chamber. Behind them, the ancient spaceport shook with the force of history returning to life. The world would never be the same. Dust and echoes filled the secondary tunnel as Keshtal and Mara ran through the dim passage. The ground shook again behind them as the enforcers forced their way deeper into the ancient spaceport. Sparks fell from old wires overhead, lighting their path with quick flashes. Mara pushed forward, glancing back only to make sure Keshtal was still behind her. "Keep moving! The drones won't hold them off much longer." Keshtal nodded, though his breath came unevenly. His mind was racing, not out of fear, but from the weight of what he had just done. The broadcast was complete. His entire world now had access to the truth he and Mara uncovered. No more lies, no more missing explorers, no more secrecy behind the erasure ritual. But with truth came consequences. The tunnel opened into a wider chamber. It was circular and empty, except for a single broken console in the center. Ancient symbols glowed faintly on the floor, reacting to the movement of their feet. Mara checked her wrist display. "Enforcers are gaining. We need to get out of here. My ship is on the east landing pad." Keshtal placed a hand on the cold wall, trying to steady himself. Do you think the people will believe the broadcast?" Mara stepped in front of him, her expression softening. "They'll believe the truth, Keshtal. The files spoke for themselves. You showed them proof, not guesses." "Yes," he whispered, "but proof can frighten people, especially when it changes everything they know." Mara gave a small, encouraging smile. "Change is always scary. But your people deserved honesty. They deserved the choice to remember." Keshtal looked at her, feeling gratitude fill his chest. "Thank you, Mara Hayes. Without you, I would have walked willingly into erasure." "And without you," she replied, "the truth would have stayed buried for another 1,000 years." Before he could answer, loud voices echoed through the tunnel behind them. Enforcers, dozens of them. Mara grabbed Keshtal's hand and pulled him toward the exit on the far side of the chamber. "No more talking! Move!" They ran again. A final stretch of corridor led up toward the surface. As they climbed, sunlight poured down from the opening above. For a moment, Keshtal felt a flicker of hope, until a sharp beam of energy shot past his shoulder. The enforcers had reached the bottom of the tunnel. Mara cursed and shoved him through the opening. "Go!" They stumbled into the blinding sunlight. Sand stretched far and wide, and the heat hit hard after the cold underground air. Mara pointed toward her ship at the far end of the landing pad. But between them and the ship stood several memory hall officials, not guards, but high-ranking leaders. Their robes fluttered in the desert wind. Their faces were pale and strained. Keshtal froze. The officials stepped toward him with sadness in their eyes. "Keshtal," their speaker said softly, "what have you done?" Mara moved in front of him protectively. "Stay back." The officials did not approach further. They raised their hands to show they carried no weapons. "We are not here to harm you," the speaker said. "We came because the entire planet has seen the broadcast. The people are confused, afraid. They demand answers." Keshtal stepped around Mara, though she stayed close. "Then answer them," he said. "Tell them why our true history was hidden. Tell them why erasure became a tool to silence those who questioned the past." The officials exchanged troubled looks. Shame flickered on their faces. The speaker sighed deeply. We inherited this system from the leaders before us. We were taught that hiding the past was the only way to keep peace. We believed that the truth would divide us. Keshtal's voice trembled with emotion, but not anger. Peace built on lies is not true peace. You know that. The official nodded slowly. We do now. Mara stepped forward. So what happens next? The official looked at her with tired eyes. The council is calling an emergency assembly. We need to explain everything to our citizens, every document, every file, every erased name. Keshtal felt a sudden rush of relief. The official then looked at him with a pleading expression. Keshtal, your voice will be important in the coming days. The people know your name now. They saw your struggle. They heard your words. They trust you. Keshtal stared at them in disbelief. You want me to help lead this? We want you to help heal this, the official said quietly. You and the human who saved you. Mara blinked in surprise. Me? Yes, the official said with a small nod. Your presence showed our people something powerful. That truth can be protected even by those outside our world. Before Keshtal could respond, the ground trembled as a drone crashed onto the sand nearby. It sparked, smoking, its ancient systems finally failing. Far off in the distance, more drones fell one by one. The enforcers slowly stopped advancing. They looked uncertain, glancing between the officials, the humans, and Keshtal. The conflict was ending, not through force, but through truth. A long silence filled the desert air. Mara looked at Keshtal. So, what do you want to do? Stay here, help your world rebuild, or leave with me and continue your research somewhere safe? Keshtal closed his eyes. For a moment, he listened to the wind moving across the ruined spaceport. He thought about the ancient stars he had once dreamed of reaching. He thought about the excitement he felt studying history and the heavy sadness of lies covering it. He also thought about Mara, someone who had risked everything for him, for the truth, and for a civilization that was not her own. When he opened his eyes, clarity filled them. I want to stay long enough to help my people understand the past, he said. But after that, I want to explore again. Not alone, but with those who value truth. Mara smiled. Then I guess you're joining the Terran Exploration Corps. Keshtal felt warmth in his chest. If you will have me. We'll be lucky to, Mara said. The officials stepped closer. We will ensure your safety until the council meeting. The people will want to hear your story. Both of you. Keshtal nodded, feeling a strange mix of fear and courage. He had never seen himself as a leader, but maybe, he thought, leadership wasn't about giving orders. Maybe it was about guiding others toward honesty. Mara leaned closer to him and whispered, You're going to do great. They followed the officials toward a waiting transport. The enforcers stepped aside silently, confusion and guilt visible on their faces. Some looked ashamed, others relieved. For the first time, Keshtal did not see them as enemies, but as people trapped in a system they never questioned, just as he had been. As the transport lifted into the sky, Keshtal watched the ruins shrink below. The spaceport, once forgotten, had become the birthplace of truth. The broadcast signals continued spreading across the globe. Everywhere, citizens were talking, questioning, and learning. Change had begun. Hours later, Keshtal stood before the council assembly, his heart pounding as thousands of citizens watched the screen. He spoke simply, honestly, using the same basic language he always used in his research notes. He told them about the ancient explorers, the forgotten history, the erased scientists, the fear that shaped their society, the truth that could help them grow again, and the need to choose knowledge over silence. When he finished, the crowd was silent. Then the applause began, soft at first, then louder. spreading across the hall like a rising wave. Keshtal felt tears touch his eyes. Later, after the council suspended the erasure ritual and opened the archives to everyone, Mara and Keshtal walked toward her ship on a bright morning. He looked up at the sky. "I never thought I would leave my world again." Mara nudged him gently. "Well, you're not leaving it behind. You're bringing its real story with you." Keshtal smiled, a peaceful, honest smile. "And I will never let the truth be buried again." The ship lifted into the air, carrying them toward the stars, toward new discoveries, toward new futures, toward a universe where memories were not erased, but shared. And Keshtal felt, for the first time in his life, fully awake.